Welcome to hell. There is no escape. There is no escape. You are in my control now. Welcome to hell.
Welcome to Hell Team Doom, and welcome back for another episode of Let's Talk About Horror, where your nightmares and reality meet. And I am back for another episode. And if you want to follow me on those social medias are Walterdoom on Instagram, the Walterdoom on TikTok and Twitter, Walterdoom Horror on YouTube, Walterdoom on anywhere that's involving streaming like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So yeah, and if you guys are following me on YouTube or listening to me on YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe, comment, and leave a like. And what we got going on for today's episode, I am going to be taking a dive into Swarm. Swarm is a show created by Janine Neighbors and Donald Glover. So as y'all know, I'm a big Donald Glover fan. You know, I love Childish Gambino. You know, that's why we always quote his lyric at the end of the show. But yeah, this is a show that kind of takes a parody approach about the Bay Hive, you know, all the Beyonce fans. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take a dive into the toxic fandom part of the show. And just talk about whether they display toxic fandom in the way we see it in reality. Also, I have Meaganzworld coming onto the show to talk about her experience with toxic fandom and just her experience on how she dealt with that. And after that, we got the Slasher Corner.
You don't have to work and slave. Let electricity do it for you. You can have your...
So to start off, I mean, we all have like fandoms. We all are a fan of something, you know, whether it's a fan of movies, music, video games, we're usually a fan of something. And within those fandoms tend to be like either just a fan base where you could relate and talk to other people about your love for whatever it is that you're a fandom, you know? Now, we got like different types of fans. We got like the fans that just like, you know, they like either indulging or listening or whatever the fan base is about. You know, if you're a fan of music, you know, you're a fan of the person's music, you know, you don't want to dig too deep into their music and what have you, or like dig too deep into like a person's personal life. You know, you see the artist as just the artist. You have people who are a fan of movies who rather be fan of the movie and watch the movie than dig deep into like some deep philosophical reason of why this movie was made. And that's fine. All of that is just fine. You know, after that, like, casual fan base, you got, like, the super fans, you know, people who are really into whatever artist or movie that they're watching. They like to know about the history of that artist or that director or why this movie was made. And all of that is just fine. All of it is healthy, by the way. Healthy things to do. Then we got another subgroup of individuals who take fandom to a whole nother level. And I don't want to say like they are the cream of the crop of fan bases, but they are the most loudest ones. And that's the type of fandom that I want to talk about today while I'm talking about the show Swarm. As you know, Swarm, which is made by Janine Neighbors and Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, made a show about a girl who's a fan of a superstar R&B singer. We all know like this show is kind of a parody of the Bay Hive, Beyonce Hive, you know, people who are fans of Beyonce. And we know also that fan base in general, I mean, and not to say like it's the only toxic fan base, because there are also other toxic fan bases, you know, but we know like this is a parody about the toxicity of that fan base. Now, let me take a side note first for an instance about toxic fan base. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys actually dealt with toxic fan bases. I mean, I for one have dealt with toxic fan base. I mean, I'm a big lover of playing video games, and my favorite game that I like to play is like NBA 2K. Been playing it for many years. I started playing more online when I got a PS3. That's like probably back in 2012, I want to say. And when I started playing online, you know, it was a whole new world for me, you know. I've been also, I mean, I can't really say I'm a fan of just the 2K series. I mean, that's probably like the only basketball game that's out there. So it's like you're kind of forced to be a fan of it for those that know about it. But I would say like I'm more of a fan of just playing basketball video games because I'm a fan of basketball. I'm not very good at it. Let me start by saying that. But I have been a fan of like many basketball games over the years. I mean, I love the NBA courtside Kobe Bryant. I mean, I had that when I was a kid, by the way. I'm kind of upset because when I was in high school, someone actually stole that game from me, you know? And it was on some bullshit too. Like, I don't even want to get into that story, but you know what? Fuck you, motherfucker, that stole my NBA courtside 2. That was like the best fucking game I have ever played, and you stole that from me. And it's like, why? But you know what? Fuck you, nigga. Moving on from that, but moving on from that soliloquy a little bit, but yeah, I'm a fan of just NBA games in general. I mean, I love, like I said, Courtside 2, NBA Streets Volume 2 was my jam. I mean, Streets Volume 1 was also cool, you know, playing that, but NBA, I believe it was called Shootout 98. I believe that was like the first game I had. It had Hakeem Olajuwon dunking on what's his face? Sean Kemp's bitch ass when he was playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, in that game they didn't even have Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan was in the league. And that's funny to me when I think about it, like just reflecting on things like that. There was a time in basketball games where Michael Jordan was not even on the game at all. Shocker. And I mean, kids today would never understand that, but Michael Jordan refused to be on these NBA games. The first NBA game he started coming back on, because he was on previous games before, but I never got around to playing them because I never owned a system until like I want to say like 96 or so, but not trying to give my age away, but you know, somewhere along that line. But yeah, Michael Jordan wasn't even in the basketball games. You know, it was always like some random generated player. And I'm gonna cut this short. I mean, because I know it's a horror channel and I'm talking about video games right now, especially sports games. But anyway, Yeah, he was never on it. And then when he started making his appearance, it was like around the time he retired. So I want to say it was NBA Live 2000 or 2001, whichever one had Tim Duncan on the cover. That was the game where he actually made his appearance. It was like a big thing. It was like Michael Jordan's back. Michael Jordan's back in NBA Live. And, you know, people were just like losing their shit because it's been years since Michael Jordan has been in like any type of basketball game in any type of fashion with his name and number on there. That was like a hell of a thing to see. And I believe I own that game too, but I don't remember. I think that game was stolen from me also. You know what? That's probably like the root of my reason of why I just don't trust motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Like shit, so many stuff was stolen from me. I mean, I kid you not. When I was in high school, Team Doom, like just people just stole stuff from me, and it wasn't even like people who were like just people who came off was just like, oh man, fuck that dude, blah blah blah. No, it was people who just pretended to be like a friend of mine. And this is where we get back and circle it around to fandom, you know? And I want to say, like, toxic fandom. What the fuck is up with it? Like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. But in this show, we see a lot of the characteristics that a lot of toxic fans hold dear and they display to the artists. Like, there are people who literally will listen to a fucking artist just to hate on them later. Now, you know what? I can't even like talk shit too much because I be doing the same thing with Drake albums. I swear to it that I feel like sometimes I'm just hate listening to Drake's albums. I'm just sitting there like, oh my goodness. I fucking hate this dude. I can't stand his fucking songs. Let me see what kind of songs he got. Okay, that shit was a banger. All right, I like that one. What's the next song? Okay, that shit fucking sucked. That dude is trash. That dude is ass. Like, I really do feel like that is what I do whenever I fucking listen to a Drake album sometimes. But, I mean, in context, I actually have been listening to Drake since his So Far Gone mixtape, and I actually really did like the guy at one point, you know? When he came out in 2010, I was really into his music, but not so much now. I mean, except for Her Loss. Her Loss is actually a decent album. Even though it's toxic as fuck, but but the point I'm trying to make is, besides going on all those tangents, is we have a group of toxic fans. Fans who are either people who gatekeep and hate on other people, or people who say like, you don't know anything about the artist, and it's just taking the love of this artist way too serious than they need to. Or they do what I was just talking about, which is hate listen, and they just continuously put money at this artist, in this artist's pockets, despite the fact that they don't really rock with this person like they say they do. And in the show Swarm, I want to show how, like, with the character Dre, they literally have all the characteristics, or majority of the characteristics, of toxic fan behavior. So first thing I want to talk about is the show Swarm and the premise of it. So like I mentioned before, this is a show created by Janine Neighbors and Donald Glover, and basically we're following a story about Dre, who is played by Dominic Fishback, and her love for the artist Nyjah, who I mentioned earlier is a parody of Beyonce. The fan base that Dre follows is called the Swarm or the Hive. I can't remember which one it is, but I believe it's the Hive. And what the Hive is notoriously known for is just trying to protect Nyjah, or seeing Nyjah as a queen, and trying to protect her as much as possible, whether it's like through like Twitter, Instagram, you know, whatever. The thing about Dre is that she takes the identification of being part of the swarm a bit too far. The first signs that I want to talk about that most toxic fans have is an unhealthy obsessive fandom / identity to these artists. We see in Swarm that Dre, she identifies herself as part of the Swarm, like I mentioned before, but it becomes her whole identity. Like, Nyjah is literally the topic and conversation of everything. Like, she believes that her and Nyjah are one, and that's sometimes what some of these toxic fans tend to believe. So, like in episode 1, titled Stung, we see Dre and she's smoking with Marissa, who is played by Chloe Bailey. And in this little segment, when they're smoking together, we see a little bit of Dre's obsession. We don't get the full obsession just yet, but we get like a taste of the obsession when Dre is talking about one day she will meet Nyjah and that they will be connected and that they will just have this like good conversation, and she will end up meeting her husband Cachet and they will become like some type of family or some shit like that she said. We see right there that she has a whole fantasy view of who Nyjah is and how that conversation would go. But later on, she will learn like that is not what's going to happen. Same thing in episode 7, where Only God Makes Happy Endings. Dre, who is going by the name of Tony now, because she's basically on the run, as we learn in the show that she goes on a killing spree and she's going from city to city to kill these other people who hate on Nyjah. Not really a spoiler, but I guess a bit of a spoiler for those who haven't seen it. But she's going by the name of Tony now, and she ends up getting into a relationship with a woman named Rashida, played by Kiersey Clemens. So what we assume is like a happy relationship ends up being not really that much happy when Rashida finds out that Dre spent money on some Nyjah tickets and Rashida is not into Nyjah. And we learn through that little altercation that is all Dre ever talks about. So after Rashida tells Dre like, hey, fuck Nyjah, she's terrible, not in those words specifically, Dre ends up killing Rashida, which is also another hilarious scene. Not the death itself, but just what transpired after the death, because what Dre ends up finding out is that Rashida still had the tickets on her, and Dre ended up burning the body and totally didn't get the tickets off of Rashida's body before burning it up. But yeah, we learned in that little altercation that's all Dre ever talks about. I'm gonna talk about like one situation that I read about on the internet on WrestlingNews.com. This one is kind of like an example of like just how obsessive fans can be and just like the crazy shit that they'll do. WWE wrestlers were having a problem going through airports or just at hotels because fans will be there with tons of merchandise, having them sign that. Now, the wrestlers themselves, they're very offended by this because they don't know whether these fans are having them sign it for themselves or these fans are taking these signed merchandise and taking it online to sell on eBay. But according to WrestlingNews.com, I'm going to read the article. There is an increasing issue that WWE stars deal with while traveling from show to show, as there are some fans who will show up at airports and hotels to get them to sign various things, whether that be toys, shirts, and other merchandise. It's not a situation where a person has one or two things, but several items leading to talent suspecting these people are just looking to make money by reselling them online. I would have the same kind of inkling also if that's what's happening. As seen below, Rey Mysterio recently dealt with this and handled the situation as best as he could by turning down the fans by telling them that he wouldn't help them make money off of his autograph. As seen below, Rey Mysterio recently dealt with this and handled the situation as best as he could by turning down the fans by telling them that he wouldn't help them make money off of his autograph. The fan had several items including Funko Pop dolls and trading cards. WWE stars came to the defense of Mysterio when some tried to make Mysterio seem like a bad person for not signing the stuff. And as he should not have to do that. There's always a time or place. It's always a time or place for a lot of that stuff. Going on with like Dre and her obsessiveness, we also learned in episode 4 Running Scare, Dre ends up getting she unintentionally joins a cult that is led by Billie Eilish. Throughout that time, Dre, she's being held without any food, water, or anything like that, and then she ends up actually confessing to the leader, who is played by Billie Eilish, Eva, that about who she is and what she has done. At a certain point, Dre, she realizes that the day that she wants to go to like this concert to go and try and like stalk Nyjah, because in the episode before, Dre ended up biting Nyjah, which is something we'll talk about. Well, which is something I will talk about later. So she ends up trying to like go city to city to try and find Nyjah to quote unquote apologize to her, but ends up getting taken to this cult and is living with them for like the weekend. She ends up realizing Sunday, which is the day of the concert and the day Nyjah is performing, she realized that, oh shit, I'm not at this concert. I need to go over there and do what I need to do. I need to stick to my mission. And one thing that these people try to help Dre with is realize a lot of those people that she is friends with online are not really her friends at all, or just like people who are really nice to begin with, and just basically try to ground her in reality about the hive. Another situation where toxic fandom has gone to very obsessive lengths is a situation I read on SheKnows.com dealing with Bjork and her stalker. As the article reads, Oscar-nominated songstress Bjork had to deal with one of the scariest stalkers to date, a man by the name of Ricardo Lopez. He grew infatuated with Bjork, losing all sense of reality. When Bjork started dating musician Goldie, Lopez felt betrayed and planned on murdering her by sending her a letter bomb using sulfuric acid. He uploaded video diaries about his obsession, later killing himself with a gunshot wound after listening to a Bjork song, per The Guardian. Authorities were able to intercept the letter bomb. Now see, that is the shit I'm talking about. Like, how are you going to consider yourself a fan, but you do things like that? And that's another thing about Dre also. It's like she considers herself a fan of Nyjah, but she ends up biting Nyjah when she sees her. I don't know what kind of fandom that is, but that's ridiculous to me. That's not a fan. Same thing with this Bjork situation. It's like, how can you consider yourself a fan, but you want to kill the person because you felt jealous she got with someone else, or someone in her personal life that she knows. She don't know you, my guy. Like, and this is one thing that, like, that's relative to the whole show about Swarm, is that Dre feels like, and as we see throughout her journey, Dre feels like her and Nyjah are supposed to be together. This woman does not know you, Dre. Like, who are you? Oh man, but moving on, as like this topic kind of piggybacks onto, or it kind of goes into my next point of view, which is dealing with social media, the toxicity of social media. And we all know how social media is toxic. Us creators, fans, whatever you do, y'all know about the toxicity of social media. I've seen and dealt with some toxic people, not necessarily fans, but just people who can get real nasty in the comment section, you know, and a lot of us could relate to that. I mean, I've dealt with some people who got real nasty online while playing NBA 2K. So, and we're just playing a video game dealing with basketball, and yeah, it gets really toxic. Like, if you're not a fan of NBA 2K, y'all would not believe the amount of fuck shit that happens with this game. In a very grandiose way of saying it. But moving on, so episode 2, you know, we see a lot of negative comments that Dre starts taking into account after the death of Marissa. Dre starts taking matters into her own hands, where she starts killing off people who have a negative opinion about either Marissa or Nyjah. So what Dre does in episode 2, she's looking for this guy named Tonk. Tonk is this guy who stops at a strip club, and he just there for whatever, and then heads out. Dre ends up taking a job at the strip club, not because she wants the money from stripping, but for the simple fact she wants to track this guy down and kill him. So what ends up happening in the show is she pretty much is in the same city as him, but she doesn't know where he's at. She ends up like meeting these other strippers. She doesn't get along with them at first. Then she ends up making friends with Paris Jackson's character. By the way, Paris Jackson is very funny in this fucking show because they kind of make fun of the whole idea of her racial identity and what have you. And I think it was very brilliant how they did that little scene with her. If y'all probably seen it so many times. They show it so many times in the commercial ads and everything like that. Actually, no, they don't. They actually show part of it, but I think they show a scene of it online, but whatever. I might be wrong. I might be having a false memory right now, but she ends up making friends with Paris Jackson. Paris Jackson has a toxic boyfriend who seems like he just yells at her all the time and uses her for money. Dre ends up killing the guy, and Paris Jackson's character sees it. After she sees it, she helps Dre, digging up the body or just like burying the body and what have you. And then Dre ends up killing Paris Jackson's character. Just like, to me, that shit came out of fucking nowhere. I was just like, oh shit, damn, okay. But yeah, she ends up killing her character off. So that leaves Dre just like, doing whatever in the episode. So what ends up happening, the girls that didn't really get along with Dre, they have her be a driver for them for this party. at this party. It's like a college party for these guys who are on this baseball team, but it looks like a total crazy Roman-esque type party. I mean, we're talking about like types of drugs, drinks, and sex. And I mean, they're not just having sex with the strippers. I mean, they're having sex with each other too. I mean, to each his own. I'm not judging, but all I gotta say, if I was at a party like this, I would think it's fucking crazy. like, come on, man. But after like the party, Dre, ends up taking the girls back to where they need to go. They end up catching a flat on the way, going back to wherever they need to go. Coming up to help them out is Tonk. Tonk ends up towing the car back to his place. And at his place, this is where the encounter gets a bit strange, because Dre, who is tunnel vision, like she is total tunnel vision on trying to kill this guy, to the point that she forgets the fact that, like, hey, you got other people there that could be fucking witnesses and what have you. So what ends up happening is that she ends up killing him over his comment, and his comment was just very trolly and what have you. I mean, the guy probably doesn't even care about fucking all the stuff he posts online, because hell, I don't care about half the stuff I post online and the things I say. I mean, sometimes I say things just to troll too. Is somebody gonna hold me accountable for it? Like, the fuck? Like, especially if it's not a serious tweet too. I mean, sometimes some people just like to ruffle the feathers a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And that's literally what Tonk was. He was a guy that just likes to ruffle some feathers. So what ends up happening is that Dre, who finally got a tire fixed on her car, goes back in the house, tries to kill Tonk. He is like, well, she tries to kill Tonk while he was in the shower, but he wasn't even in the shower yet. So they're out there scrapping with each other. Luckily for Dre, the mission gets accomplished when one of the strippers ends up shooting Tonk. And they're all like scared and shit, because they're all like, oh my God, we just killed a man, blah, blah, blah. While all that is happening, Dre ends up ditching the strippers, like totally ditching them and leaving them stranded at the fucking guy's house. Crazy shit. We also see the same bit of doxing that Dre does in episode 3. Now, we could literally say, like, in that episode, on episode 2, this is truly when doxing, it's at its all-time high of, oh shit, this is not good. Like, literally, like, this is like if you're talking shit to somebody online and you tell them, like, hey, pull up. This motherfucker actually pulls up, dropped the addy and everything, and they pulled up. That's what she did. And that's what makes it really bad, because doxing has been the biggest problem in gaming culture for a while. We learned about a doxing incident that turned into murder with this guy named Andrew Finch. He was murdered in his house by police because there was an argument between two gamers who did not live at the dude's house, but one of the dudes used to live at the house that Andrew Finch was living in, dropped that address. The guy who was mad at the guy over like $1.50 bet called some dude in California and was like, hey, I need you to send some people over at this house and scare this motherfucker. And what ends up happening is the police goes to the house, which is occupied by Andrew Finch, and Andrew Finch gets killed in the process of everything that's happening in there. So the story of Andrew Finch, if you want to hear about it, it goes like this. The hoax or swatting call started after some online gamers played Call of Duty World War II. Shane Gaskell of Wichita said he got into an argument with online gamer Casey Viner of Ohio over a $1.50 bet. During the argument, Gaskill gave Viner an O Street address. Viner then contacted Tyler Barris of Los Angeles and recruited him to place a hoax call to Wichita police about a shooting and kidnapping at the address. Finch and his family lived at Gaskill's old address. When police showed up, Finch answered the door and tried to convince officers that there must have been a misunderstanding. The encounter ended with the officers shooting and killing Finch. Barris is serving 20 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to 51 counts in April 2019. Viner was sentenced to 15 months on September 2019 after pleading guilty to conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Shane Gaskill was sentenced in September 2022 to 18 months in prison after pleading guilty to wire fraud. In the 5 years since his death, the Kansas legislature passed the Andrew Finch anti-swatting bill. The people responsible for the hoax have been sentenced, and the WPD promoted the officer who shot Finch. Now that's some fucked up shit. But that is an example of swatting gone to the worst. Now, moving back to Swarm, in episode 3, which is called Taste, and this is the episode where Dre ends up biting Nyjah. So what ends up happening is, in the beginning of the episode, Dre goes to this guy's house. This guy, by the way, seems like a very successful YouTube creator. You see like his little YouTube plaque hanging on his wall and what have you, like in a very nice place. Dre pulls up because, again, she is on this whole motive and mission on killing people who don't like Nyjah. So what's funny to me is like, and this is an example of why people shouldn't take what people say on social media so fucking serious. So when she goes and tries to kill the dude, and she talking about she got receipts on like all the things he said, he looked at her and was like, nigga, Twitter? I swear I laughed so hard when I heard that, because it was like, why are you taking Twitter so much to heart? But it's going back to like all the things that I said before about like just toxic fandom and people being obsessive, you know, and people that like, and it makes me wonder like what goes through the minds of these people who take Twitter so damn serious, or take any type of social media comment so serious, you know? In 2016, there was a Ghostbusters reboot, and it had a lot of hate. A lot of hate. Like, people were not a fan of the fact that it was a Ghostbuster movie with an all-female cast. You know, and unfortunately it came during a time where, you know, Hillary Clinton was running for presidency. Donald Trump was out there grabbing women by the pussy. But it was like literally just at a worst time possible. And, you know, a lot of people who don't know how the movie industry works don't really understand, like 9 times out of 10, a lot of these movies are made 2-3 years prior to any of these events taking place. But you have people on Twitter really just like hating the hell out of this movie, saying like this movie was woke, it had woke propaganda. And I hate the fact that a lot of people use woke in such a negative context. You know, it's like people bastardize the word, and I don't like the way people bastardize the word just to make it something negative. You feel what I'm saying? But yeah, a lot of people jumped on Twitter and was hating on that movie. I didn't watch that movie because I just was not feeling like the cast myself. I didn't think of it being woke. I just thought it wasn't a good movie. Like literally, that's all that was. Moving on, like, to the last thing that this show displays about toxic fandom is fan entitlement. And throughout this whole thing, I mean, we understand that Dre's obsession, it seems more like it's entitled because, again, at the end of the day, she feels like she is destined to meet Nyjah. She feels like Nyjah and her belong together. We see that when she's talking to Marissa and she's talking to Khalid, who was played by Damson Idris, and about talking about how, like, her and Nyjah are meant to be together. We see it in episode 3 where she manipulates a guy who is working for Nyjah's husband, Cache. His little after party or album release party, she manipulates him and steals his badge to get inside the release party, and ends up seeing Nyjah just a few steps away from her and ends up biting her in the process. Then she becomes entitled to the point where she's following Nyjah's tour wherever she's at, just to quote unquote apologize and see that they had a misunderstanding. I mean, it's first things first, we are not even entitled to anybody. We are not entitled to any celebrities. You know what I'm saying? And that obsessiveness, that's what get people fucked up half the time. You know what I'm saying? This another situation that happened to another wrestler, because I'm a big WWE fan if y'all didn't notice. But Sonya Deville, she had a stalker situation that happened to her. And I forget which article I got this from. I believe I don't remember what article. I think it's WFLA. I don't remember what that shit is. But the article reads like this: an obsessive stalker who tried to kidnap WWE superstar Sonya Deville nearly 3 years ago was sentenced to more than a decade behind bars. According to court documents obtained by WFLA, Philip Arnold Thomas was arrested on suspicion of stalking and trying to kidnap Deville at her home in Lutz, Florida in August 2020. According to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Thomas, who is from South Carolina, had been stalking Deville on social media for a few years and had spent 8 months plotting to kidnap her before he traveled to her home and tried to take her hostage. Authorities said he parked his vehicle at the nearby Idlewild Baptist Church, walked to Deville's home, and used a knife to cut a hole in the patio screen. He waited a few hours, then broke in through a backsliding door, setting off a security alarm. Deville and a guest, fellow WWE superstar Amanda Sacmano, who is better known as Mandy Rose, were able to leave the home and call 911. When officers arrived, they found Thomas with a knife, plastic zip ties, duct tape, and mace. Now, what the hell was he about to do? What kind of fan is this? He was arrested and charged with aggravated stalking, armed burglary, attempted kidnapping, and criminal mischief. Our deputies are unveiling the suspect's disturbing obsession with the homeowner who he had never met, key phrase, had never met, but stalked on social media for years. Sheriff Chad Cronister said at the time, "It's frightening to think of all the ways this incident could have played out had the home alarm not gone off and alerted the homeowner of an intruder. And there are stories of celebrities who have been killed by obsessive fans." In April, Thomas agreed to a plea deal with prosecutors and was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, plus 15 years of probation once he is released. In addition to the prison term, the judge ordered Thomas to have no contact with Deville or her family. He must also cover court fees and undergo a psychosexual evaluation and complete any recommendation within 60 days of his release. Now, here's the thing. When I read this story and I heard about this guy and how obsessive he was, I was like, does this motherfucker know that she likes women and that there's nothing he could do to really change that? I mean, like, and she's not even hiding it either. Like, she really makes it known on her social media page. And I know there's like motherfuckers out there that's probably like, oh yeah, you know, I could change her. She just hasn't had any real good dick in her life or what have you. But it's like, bro, at the end of the day, like, homegirl is, she likes what she likes, you know? Like, but it's a weird thing because it's like, bro really said, like, hey, I'm gonna take some duct tape, I'm gonna take some zip ties and some mace, and yeah, you're gonna love being with me. Like yo, you trying to force love by holding her hostage. That is weird. And you call yourself a fan. Is this even normal fan behavior? I don't think so. Like, what kind of fan wants to bring harm to their favorite celebrity? Like, that is something I don't understand, but it's happened to many other celebrities, you know, that went through this, you know. But bringing it all to a closing, you know, in conclusion, I want to say, like, as far as dealing with toxic fandom, or just like the reflection of toxic fandom by Swarm, I feel like they're very on point with, like, just showing people in, like, somewhat of an extreme way how fans can be toxic sometimes. So, like, with the stalking, with the doxing and physical abuse, because obviously I gave you guys, like, articles about different situations where people are getting either stalked, doxed, or abused or some type of way, or attempted abuse. So many years ago, I mean, I don't remember what year it was, Jay-Z and Beyonce had a big controversy, you know, where people thought Jay-Z was cheating on Beyonce, or it was coming out that Jay-Z was cheating on Beyonce. I don't remember. I hear so many conflicting things about this story. It's like, yeah, it's about Jay-Z really cheating on her. Then I'm hearing it's like, nah, it's about Beyonce's mom getting cheated on by Beyonce's dad or whatever. I don't know. Whichever pendulum y'all want to swing on that, hey, go with that. But there was this line in Beyonce's song where she talks about Becky with the good hair, and fans wanted to know who was this supposed Becky with the good hair. And there was a couple of women who were being suspected. One of them was, I believe, Rachel Ray. I feel like it's Rachel Ray. I feel like the article got it wrong, but I feel like it's Rachel Ray because she was being harassed online, and they were thinking like, well, that's Becky with the good hair over there. Another woman that was being harassed was Golden State Warriors owner Joe Lakers' wife, Nicole Curran. She was being harassed by people on social media because they saw Jay-Z talking to her, and Beyonce, I guess, made a face or some shit like that, and the fans decided to take it upon themselves to where they were like, hey, we don't like what you're doing. Leave Jay-Z alone. Leave our queen's husband alone. And it's like a whole bunch of behavior that is totally uncalled for, not really asked for, not really necessary. You know what I'm saying? We talked about the doxing situation with the Andrew Finch situation. Fortunately, the family has been compensated. So, according to the article, more than 5 years after police officers shot and killed Andrew Finch, the city of Wichita has agreed to a $5 million settlement in the case. On Tuesday, the Wichita City Council voted 6-1 to approve $5 million as a full and complete settlement of all possible claims arising out of his death. $3 million for the family, $1 million to a restricted account for the estate of Andrew Finch, 1 million structured settlement annuities for one of his children, meaning the money will go to the child in increments over time. 1 million structured settlement annuities to his other child. 1.5 million, I should say, in attorney fees, and 1.3 million payable to Action and Inquiry Law Group, and 255,000 paid for a structured settlement annuity for Andrew M. Stroth. I don't know who that is. I guess that's probably like one of the lawyers or someone like that. But either way, basically the family got compensated in the end. Now, was his life worth taking for that amount of money? I mean, I feel like no money is worth anybody's life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, yeah, taking a life is real priceless, because at the end of the day, I mean, no amount of money is going to bring that person back. Yeah, the family is going to be well compensated, but it's not going to bring anybody back at the end of the day, you know? But it's unfortunate what happened to him. Unfortunately, the cop who actually killed Finch, he is still working, and I believe he got promoted as a detective now in Wichita. So that guy has a steady career, and because of like different laws that are in place in that city, you know, they can't really talk about like the reasons why that guy was promoted or why he was able to stay on the force. As mentioned before, like the obsession and the doxing, you know, other celebrities have dealt with some crazy ass shit themselves. You know, other celebrities like J-Lo, she literally had a stalker living in her guest house for a week before he got arrested. I remember hearing about that, and I thought that was fucking insane. Christina Grimmie, I remember that story. She got murdered by her stalker, someone who's supposedly a fan. Selena, you know, someone who was running her fan club, got murdered by the president of the fan club. And Winona Ryder, you know, she ended up in the most, like, I guess, fortunate incident ever. She had a stalker who was an extra on one of the movies that she was working on. She told the company about that dude, and fortunately he was like, hey, I'm not really on you anymore. I just moved on to Alyssa Milano. I'm just saying, like, what kind of bullshit is that? Like, imagine being stalked by somebody for so many years. You know, you're going through like all these psychological changes, just like all these traumas that are being dumped on you, just to hear your stalker say, oh yeah, I'm done with you. I don't really like you like that anymore. I moved on to someone better looking than you. Like, honestly, that is some bullshit right there, and sometimes can be kind of a slap in the face. Like, because you're kind of like low-key thinking, I mean, if you are thinking that, you're like, well, what the fuck, this person got better than me. All right, so there is a part 2 for this episode, but for right now, for time's sake, I am not going to air it right now, but just know next time, part 2 of Swarm coming soon, where we talk to the lovely Meaganzworld about her take on toxic fandom. So right now, let's get into the Slasher Corner. welcome to the Slasher Corner, where our Slasher Corner movie of the week is May, and you can find May on Tubi. The movie is starring Angela Bettis and Anna Faris, and in this movie, a young misfit May, played by Angela Bettis, endured a difficult childhood because of her lazy eye, and though contact lenses have helped May just as a young adult, her deep-seated awkwardness remains a problem. Adam, played by Jeremy Sisto, a young man obsessed with fixing wrecked cars, takes a shine to May's oddball ways, but May's strangeness ultimately drives him away, leaving her open to advances of her co-worker Polly, played by Anna Faris. When Polly dumps her too, May's emotional instability turns violent. This movie came out in 2003. I watched this movie I don't remember how long ago. But it's a good film from what I remember. I think you all should check it out. Since we are talking about obsessive people, I feel like May is definitely a movie y'all should definitely watch for this week's Slasher Corner movie of the week. So I am out of here, you guys. This is today's show. Thank you all for listening. You guys are the real MVP, the audience out there, Team Doom. And if you want to follow me on them social medias, those social medias are Walterdoom on Instagram, the Walterdoom on TikTok and Twitter, Walterdoom Horror on YouTube, and Walterdoom on anywhere that's involving streaming. This has once again been another episode of Let's Talk About Horror. This is America. Don't let them catch you slipping now. Stay diabolical, people. Peace.